we have with us in the studio Kate Herbert, theatre reviewer. Kate, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm well, thanks. I like that as a my theme tune, I think. Can we have a little snippet next week?
Oh,
whenever
yeah.
I come back?
Okay, all right. Since you asked. Now, Kate, you've been warming quite a few seats in quite a few theatres. Kick us off. What's one of the things you've gone to see?
I describe I suppose it's the 2 weeks in theatre as sport, court and fraught, and which will become clear as I explain these shows. But we'll begin with fraught, which is Anna Kay. And anybody who knows Leo Tolstoy's novel from, I think it's 1878,
yes,
the Anna Karenina novel, Susie Miller's play Anna Kay is loosely based on the story of Karenina, hence Anna Kay. So the central character, the narrative, the themes are based around that character. It tells a disturbing, quite distressing tale of a current affairs investigative journalist who...
So it's all brought up to date.
It's modern. It's modern. So when I say it's based loosely, it's contemporary. So it's very loose. It's the name and some themes and characters. She breaks the golden rule of journalism by becoming the story. Naughty, not intentional. Because she's hard-hitting, inverted commas, journalist. But what she has done is done a story about army bullying, and the whistleblower is a young soldier, so called Lexi. So we think of Alexei Vronsky, who was the officer in Karenina.
in Anna Karenina.
Yeah, and he was the source for her sensational news story breaking this issue about bullying in the army. So those characters are played by Caroline Craig as Anna and Callan Colley as Lexi. And what happens is that the whole thing is set in rather luxy-looking hotel room with full-length whole back wall is curtains looking out into the street. What is outside in the street, we find out shortly. So they're there for about 3 days, the two of them. Anna doesn't leave the room. She's left her husband and her child. Echoes of Karenina again.
Yeah, that's right.
But again, that in these times is not nearly as...
not as
punishable, not as potent or shaming as it would have been in that period, where she was essentially a chattel and had no means of her own and was ostracised from the community. So they're locked in love's sweet embrace, shall we say, in this hotel room for this period of time.
Sounds all right.
Yeah. And Lexi leaves, comes back, he says he's going for job interviews. Meanwhile, the story has leaked about her leaving her husband and her child. That seems to be the most important thing that the people take exception to.
Because leaving a husband's not really going to make headlines anyway.
No, exactly. And with a TV personality, it might be sort of par for the course. But she hasn't yet told the child, and the 10-year-old boy is to come with the nanny shortly to be informed of this separation. So outside the windows, it's taken me a while to get to just lay the scene. Outside these full-length windows is a flock of ravening media, just people standing, waiting. We don't hear them.
She must all know, actually.
She presumably knows all of them. There must be lots. We hear nothing. We don't hear any noise. And it's also hit social media. And occasionally she gets a beep on her phone, a notification. I would have thought if she was getting that much social media bullying and trolling, it would be beeping off the charts.
Or turn the thing off.
Yeah. And in the back, to establish that this is going on, this shaming, there's in neon letters, I won't say the term, but some 3-word slogan, really, that is the most abusive a woman sort of term. Oh. So really ugly. And that's there from the very beginning. So there is her catch cry on her show is the truth at all costs. And it's caught her in a bind because suddenly the truth about her personal life is coming out. But as you said, in these times, it seems a bit unusual for that.
I was going to say, why are they interested in her?
Why are they so interested in this particular issue when she's had nothing else? There'd been some story where she was accused of fabricating and then was proved not to have done that, but that all comes up again. People are calling her liars and all sorts of other names. And trolling it could be anything, but it's personal rather than about her work. But I would imagine that someone in that position would have had that before. It's stated that she has not had personal abuse before, but about her work. But they're saying she's lying to the public, etc. So she essentially disintegrates. Within those 3 days, she goes into a complete mental collapse. A couple of people come to visit, but they're all played by the same woman. That becomes a little bit confusing because the characters are not quite clearly drawn. So I'll come to the nature of the show and what I felt about it. Let's start with, I'll preface this with, some people liked this far more than I did. Not that I'm damning it, but I was not one of its greatest fans, I suppose I would say. But there are other people who, certainly enjoyed it or thought there was more layer to it, more to it, more layers. Caroline, she does seem to go, there's a cascade of catastrophes, I suppose, is what Susie Miller has created for Anna, as she's huddling in this hotel room, waiting for her son to be delivered to her, and then her son won't answer her calls, etc. Her character is sort of brittle and broken, and meanwhile, the soldier, Alexei, played by Callum Colley, is rather naive and thinks, it'll be all right, we'll explain our story. That doesn't work in the media. So we all are aware of that. We know that doesn't work. But what is troubling for me in terms of its theatricality is that it doesn't have that electric chemistry between the characters that we know with Karenin and Vronsky. It was, they couldn't leave each other alone. And we expect in this instance that would be the same, but it all looks rather sort of pallid. And there is an intimacy coach credited. And I know from my observation of shows where there's an intimacy coach. Since all the Me Too issues in theatre and film, shows have a person known as an intimacy coach. It started in the US, I think. And a number of shows have used them. The MTC used them for the show Berlin last year.
Is this basically to make sure that things don't cross the line?
Yes, that it remains safe for the people engaged in the intimate conduct on stage. What this has done, I suspect, is removed the kind of electricity and passion and danger on the stage by removing it for the individual actors. And those two things aren't compatible. If you've got two characters who represent Anna Karenina and Vronsky, or these two who are in, she's left her husband, she's left her child, she's risked now her career.
That's right, she's in the throes
of absolute passion. And I certainly didn't see it, certainly didn't feel it, and I was puzzled. It may have been compounded by the fact that Caroline Craig appeared to be carrying a shoulder injury. Quite a serious one, but look, it was strapped and she couldn't move the arm well. So that let's say that may excuse some of it.
Good on her for
done.
forging on.
Yeah, Dr. Theatre, carry on. So that's a concern. It impeded her movement, but there was a lack of what I'd call genuine passion and intimacy. It looks a bit like a soap opera to me, and is directed in some ways like that. And I think the staging is rather awkward. It's a very wide stage at the Merlin, and there are some scenes that are tucked right into corners. And at one point she turns upstage and looks into a mirror to deliver what I think towards the end, nearly the end, is a very important speech about talking as if she's talking to an interviewer and revealing her story. But we can't see her face because she's looking upstage on the other side of the stage, far stage
so it's
left.
kind of like a device that they're using to try to, I don't know, are they trying to distance you from the character, or are they trying to, I'm not sure what the...
I don't know, I think it was just a mistake somehow, Adam, but maybe not.
Okay.
Then she turns to front, and that is the strongest part of the play, when she turns to front and talks as if she is being interviewed by someone such as herself, an investigative journalist, and explains her story and argues her point, and she stands up. She's dressed, she's been lounging around in, scruffy clothes and getting drunk and hysterical and dancing like a lunatic and throwing herself at the windows. But at this point, after 3 days of dissolving into demented behaviour, she suddenly pulls herself together. Didn't quite believe that.
So can I just ask, what's the kind of dilemma happening here? Because I know in Anna Karenina, it's basically, her fidelity and social responsibility to the husband and the kids and all that sort of thing versus her independence and passion. And it's a kind of like a head versus heart. And she's got this dilemma, and if she follows one path, she will be a social outcast. And if she follows the other path, she will basically be suppressing her innermost desires and expression. Yeah. What's the dilemma here?
It doesn't have nearly the weight of the Tolstoy story as you just described it. The dilemma is, well, she's decided to leave the husband. She's clearly, chosen, this is our life, they both say, and Lexi, the character, says, look, it's our choice, we can do what we want, we'll go away. Her dilemma is that most of the dilemma is that she can't see her son. He's chosen to be influenced by what the father has told him. Mummy's left you. and the loss of her career and her professional integrity and position, which is different from the loss of your entire social sort of the acceptance by the entire society, your family, friends, everybody. Shunning completely. Yeah. So I don't think it can't have that level in this. So that's Karenin.
Right. No, that's playing at the Anna Kay's playing at the Merlin Theatre at the Malthouse until September the 4th. Are you going to do one of those things where you give us a star number?
I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. How about that?
All right. Sounds
yeah.
Good to
so
me.
When I say I wasn't damning it, that's not a damning number.
No.
At all.
No. So worth going to have a look. And
I think so.
And pretty much the Malthouse is, anything at the Malthouse is almost anything. Is worth going to have.
Things are interesting.
Yeah.
So we get to Court. We've done Fraught. We're up to Court, which is actually the name of this.
C-A-U-G-H-T.
Yes.
Not
Court. Yeah. By Christopher Chen, an American playwright. So this has won some awards in the States. It's at Red Stitch. And it begins, it's a very interesting and quite different play. Well, very different play. It's a brain bender, really. It's so complex. It keeps shifting and the audience is constantly trying to unravel this puzzle, it's a puzzle. It's a Rubik's Cube. It's a Russian doll with a story inside an idea. It goes on and on. So each time you move, everything shifts. The beginning is an address by a Chinese dissident artist called Lin Bo, played by Louis Li. He's at a pop-up gallery. He's telling his story about how he was imprisoned in China.
Is this a kind of nod to Ai Weiwei or something?
Maybe. Sort of, as I thought beforehand, is it Ai Weiwei. So it sounds a bit like that, right. But it doesn't cite him at any point. It mentions another artist, a made-up artist as well, that he talks about having read, who does conceptual work. He sent out notes with the art that he wanted to be created, a little note saying, do this, and people would do it. So this chap is also a conceptual artist as well as a visual artist. We're surrounded, the stage is it's tiny at Red Stitch, quite different from Malthouse. And he talks about doing enormous calligraphy on, as graffiti. And so there are these sort of torn shards or fragments of what looks like art paper, giant art paper with rough calligraphy on it as the sort of framing of the stage, which is really interesting. So his opening speech is charming and alarming because of what he tells us about being imprisoned because he organised a conceptual artwork, which is a conceptual protest about the Tiananmen rally. So he doesn't actually have the rally. He just sends out information that we should have the rally. And people will come online saying, where's the rally?
Right.
So everything's conceptual. So you start to get a sense of the brain bendingness of this show at this point. He's almost cheerful as he's telling us about being imprisoned and rat sleeping out of toilets and, frequent interrogations and awful food, etc. So he's been made a celebrity by an article in the New Yorker. What follows is a series of different scenes that unravels. His interviewer, who wrote his story, and her editor just unravel his story and him and his reality. So the next is...
In the sense of unravelling, in the sense of undermining it and...
Yes,
and
I don't want to spoil it for audience.
Revealing falsehoods? Okay, don't spoil it.
Revealing issues that were not present in the New Yorker article and we'll call it his truth. So what it's doing the whole way through, I suppose, is the simplest way to describe it, that it's understanding, deconstructing our understanding of truth in art, in journalism, in power, and even in theatre itself. So every section of this unravels the story from the previous scene. And the next is another artist who sends her interviewer into a complete dissolve. She falls apart because her reality is being questioned. It goes on and on. I can't begin to tell you the details because it would tell you the entire story. But you get caught. He's caught. We're caught. And we start sort of wandering around in this maze.
Mental labyrinth.
It is a labyrinth, absolutely a labyrinth. And I'll just say, just so people know what I'm talking about, Sport was a little show called More Than a Game, the unauthorised footy show.
Oh, this is the
little musical.
This is at the at Chapel Off Chapel, am I right?
I'll briefly tell you. It's just a cute musical. It's an hour long. It's created by some young people from Adelaide, and it's got some goofy songs and story about Billy Brownless from the Footy Show and Gary Lyon, who ended up with Brownless's ex-wife. So they've created a whole hour about this particular incident.
You've got to love a musical about footy.
About footy, particularly
right.
this week.
If you're into footy. Now, the court plays at the Red Stitch Theatre in St Kilda until September the 11th. So you've got a bit of time, but don't, it sounds like a great production. So don't,
I gave that a 3.5 as
yeah,
well.
don't miss out on seeing that. And if you want to see more than a game, the footy musical, that's basically finishing tomorrow. So hurry up. It's on at Chapel Off Chapel. Now, Kate, you've agreed to hang around, and when hopefully we've got Doug Hansel coming in very shortly from the musical Come From Away. You've agreed to hang around and have a bit of a chat with Doug. Until then, Kate, thanks very much for the reviews. We look forward to your next ones.
Thanks.